Hello and welcome to today's webinar, part of our Risk and Regulations live event this week. I'm Chloe McCulloch, Buildings Editorial Director, and this webinar looks at managing and delivering Part L regulations, and it's sponsored by Trimble. With me today, we have Ben Wallbank, BIM Strategy and Partnerships Manager at Trimble. We have Jamie Bursnell, Technical and Innovations Manager at Bellway. And we have Nick Wild, Practice Director at Constructive Thinking. So welcome to our panel. It's wonderful to have you with us today. So the panel will explore Part L regulatory changes and how the updates that have been introduced bring with them shifts in the energy efficiency and environmental sustainability standards, which obviously has implications for how projects are delivered. The key topics that we set out to cover today fall under, I think, 5 broad areas. So a comprehensive overview of Part L updates, strategies for seamless integration, technological solutions for enhanced performance, project management best practice, and future-proofing strategies. So I think all of our panel, they've got their own presentations, but we will probably broadly cover off those areas. And a quick reminder that you're welcome to post questions throughout this 1-hour webinar. We have lots of people on this session, so while I will try to direct all of your questions to the panel, we may not get through all of them, but I will try to do my best. And so that will happen after our 3 presenters have finished their presentations. And a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available on demand via building.co.uk. So do come back if you have colleagues who haven't been able to attend today and you know that the topic is relevant to them. Right, I think that is quite enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Ben first. The rest of us are going to disappear, and we are going to hand over to him so that he can present his slides. So I will turn off my camera and over to Ben.
So Chloe, can you see this now?
I can see your slides, and I just need Jamie to turn off his camera if he can. And I think I can still see Jamie. But that's okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, over to you, Ben.
Okay, so what am I going to do? So before the real experts the real experts are the guys who are actually delivering this on the ground, which I know my colleagues on the call are actually doing. One as an architect and the other as a large-scale house builder. So what I'm going to try and do is set the context for all of this, the context of the changes to Part L. So what are we being asked to do? And then the bit that I can contribute to is what role technology can play. So Trimble are obviously technology providers, and this is sort of our area. So I can contribute certainly to the Q&A part on that. So I guess the first thing to say is that we really shouldn't be surprised about these regular updates we're getting to our requirements in terms of sustainability. The built environment counts for about 25% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions, and around 14% of that comes from the 28 million homes in the UK. So it's a big portion of our net carbon take, and this should be seen as part of the government's drive towards net zero by 2050. But obviously, we've already seen, even from the 1970s, when I was first practicing as a student. So I trained in the Bartlett back in 1980 or so. So I'm an old man. But even then, we were starting to see the very first parts of how do we insulate our buildings and what is cold bridging and stuff like this. So this can be seen as part of quite a long history of increasing requirements in terms of insulation and sustainability. So we've had this series of incremental updates to Part L of the building regs, each more onerous in terms of heat loss and now in carbon consumption. So we might be tempted to think of this as yet more bureaucracy in our industry, but the way that I think we should do. So of course, this is all with an aim to us trying to stop temperatures on the planet rising too fast and too high. An attempt to do that. But as an industry, surely what we ought to be thinking is that this is about ensuring better quality for our customers, so better product for them. So yes, there are more onerous things that we now need to do to prove that we are doing what we say we're doing, but we should be doing this anyway. Obviously, as we insulate more heavily, if there is any cold bridging, the problems will be more severe. And certainly we want to be proving that we are cutting energy costs for our customers. So it's not really just about that. It's, this is us proving that we're doing the job the way that we are contracted to do it. So there are 5 new approved documents, and these were mandatory from 15th of June 2022, so been around for a little while, and slightly later in Wales. And there are 2 bits to Part F and 2 bits to Part L. So in each case, 1 volume for dwellings and a 2nd volume for other buildings. And then there's also a completely new approved document, Part O, which covers the overheating of our buildings, which again, if you think about it, is obviously closely related. So these new rules regulate dwellings and buildings other than dwellings. In other words, it's pretty much everything that we're going to do. And there was a grace period, but that is now over. So we've now got to do this. So it's, this applies really to all of our work, work to both new buildings and to existing buildings. So this amounts to a really substantial increase in the regulatory standards. So this last increment is a 31% decrease in dwelling carbon emissions and a 25% decrease in carbon emissions from buildings other than dwellings. So really substantial increases here. And in particular, there is a really keen attention now to thermal bridging. Now, this includes, so this is, I guess, one of the things that Jamie will talk about. This includes on-site location-specific photography to show that the approved details, which you've run past build control, have actually been built. So in other words, you actually need a geolocation and a time to prove when these were taken to show that you've actually built what you said you were going to build. And I guess equally importantly, this is the wishes to produce better quality, but there is also a boot on the foot of our building control, which is the power to pull down non-compliant work, and really frighteningly, if we don't do our job properly, an unlimited fine for persistent offence. So we really have got to get this right. There are really good reasons why we need to get this right. And there is yet another increase on the way. So we've got the 2025 Future Homes Standard also on the way. So that was announced in 2019. Consultation for that is ongoing, and that will become mandatory, surprise, surprise, in 2025. And the aim is to ensure that new homes built from 2025 will produce 75 to 80% less carbon emissions. So you can see another huge leap up in requirements at that point. But again, the idea is that the UK will become world leading in levels of energy efficiency. And again, as is always the case with these things, it's trying to equip us to be able to export the skills that we're learning here into our other markets. Now, technology plays a huge part in helping us to do this. And again, we shouldn't be surprised. So 15 years ago, back in 2010, the low carbon construction report was written. And interweaved through this is the idea that BIM and digital approaches to energy assessment are absolutely key to achieving this. So, this again should come as absolutely no surprise. So what is the role of today's technology? So first of all, there are the simulation tools. So these assist with the design calculations of heat loss and the prevention of cold bridging. There are standard assessment procedure, so softwares available. So these are certified by the BRE. So latest, I believe, is SAP 10.2. Some of these softwares are free for you to use, so that will help with actually making the assessments. But common data environments, things like Viewpoint for Projects, will help you to define what deliverables are required from each party and to monitor and validate through the workflows each deliverable, and really importantly, record who's done what and when. So that is part of this wider golden thread of information. So actually not just in this area of the building regs, but certainly in Part L as well. It's in the Safety Act as well. There are huge demands now for us to have an auditable golden thread of information retained. And of course, part of this is using mobile site-based platforms, so such as Viewpoint Field View, to record the approved construction details on site with that geolocation, so or QR codes to make it clear that the records were taken at the appropriate time before things got covered up, so that there's proof that the approved details have actually been constructed. And again, part of this would be making those sign-off forms mandatory, and of course sending those, then integrating those into your common data environment to ensure that you've got the recording of what's come from the site. So I'm going to say thank you very much and hand you over at this point to Jamie.
Thank you so much, Ben. I will invite Jamie now to share his screen. Not quite showing yet, Jamie. Give it another go. We could see your computer, but we couldn't see these slides. Bear with us, everyone. We're just trying to get the slides up for you. Jamie, if you could turn on your mic so I can just double check.
I am.
Are you able to find the slides?
I just can't share.
Okay.
So I'm sharing a screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Can you see my slides?
I can't see your slides. I can see your screen. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's showing up. That's perfect. Yeah, wonderful. Have you got that in presenter mode?
Yeah, sorry. Right. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Over to you.
Right. Sorry about that, everybody. Good afternoon. Jamie Bursnall, Group Technical Innovation Manager at Bellway Homes. We're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about Bellway's approach to compliance with Part L 2021. The message might appear, I use the word standardisation and consistently quite a lot. So Bellway's strategy to manage compliance with Part L is to standardise as far as possible. This includes the standardisation of house type designs, the fabric specification, ventilation, heating and renewables. Part L 2021 reduced emissions by 31% over 2013 standard, and this is a stepping stone to future AIM standard, as Ben alluded to. It's also important, as well as standardising house type designs, fabric specification. We found it's also important for energy calculations to be standardised to prove compliance. To this end, Bellway worked with a limited number of SAP assessors to ensure consistent use of the group specification and consistent understanding of our construction detail, etc. As Ben alluded to, one of the larger impacts of Part L 2021 was the requirement to supply photographic images of key areas of construction detail to evidence that what was built was that designed. This gives the developer confidence that the products and solutions are not being substituted and reduces the risk of a performance gap between the as design intention and the as built performance of a new home. Bellway have an extensive standard range of 2 to 5 bed house types. The standardisation of house types gives Bellway the advantage of being able to identify whole house specifications for fabric, ventilation, heating and renewables that are consistent across the range. Bellway's portfolio of standard house types come along with the flexibility to apply different elevation treatments or styles to suit the local vernacular while keeping to a standardized product. Here you can see the same house type delivered in a both traditional and a more contemporary style. Part L 2021. So our 3 steps to compliance, or 3 compliance metrics. First of all, we ensure that we're compliant with our fabric energy efficiency standard. So the FEES standard is only impacted by U values and air tightness. So that's the U value of a wall, roof, floor, window, door, or air tightness. And it is only impacted by those metrics. Adding solar panels or increasing the efficiency of heating does not impact the FEES standard. So what we found really important was to get that blend of U values for fabric elements compliant before we then move on to look at the efficiency of our space and water heating, the efficiency of our lights, etc. And then finally, Bellway, I'll mention later on in the presentation, we did retain gas boilers for 2021 regs while we're working through redesigning house types for future home standard. We then balance primary energy and dwelling emission rate with an amount of solar PV to give compliance. So Bellway's first step, as described to Part L compliance, is to ensure that fabric values apply and we achieve a FEES value equal to or lower than the target. We ensure that our combination of U values does give that standardized level of compliance across the board. So describe that better. We're looking for one wall specification to suit all house types, similar with floor, thickness of roof insulation, glazing specification and door U values. That way our supply chain and our subcontractors become familiar with the Bellway's construction specification, and that gives us a surety of consistent level of compliance. Fabric values are consistent from house to house type. However, design air permeability is a variable, with some house types requiring a lower design air permeability test figure than others. So we ensure that the combination of U values give us that compliance, and we keep to that standard approach. We also, from a Part F point of view, we've made the move to decentralized mechanical ventilation. So we have constantly running fans located in each room to help manage our customers' air quality and ventilation. So Bellway have a number of operational sites utilising air source heat pump. The air source heat pumps. The intention here is that all divisions, so Bellway operate nationally from 22 divisional businesses. The intention here is to ensure that all divisions develop an understanding of air source heat pumps ahead of the expected transition for future home standard. So this is where we're stimulating supply chain. We're looking to make sure that our subcontractors upskill. We're working to ensure that our site agents understand what best practice like. We're working working to ensure that our sales representatives understand how an air source heat pump works, so they can pass that on to the customer. So it's that level of training and understanding end to end. For 2021 regs, however, gas boilers have been retained, with combination boilers being used in houses with one family bathroom and one ensuite. House types with multiple en-suites have heat only boilers with cylinders. All Bellway homes have 2 heating zones, and all Bellway homes benefit from the smart learning functionality of the Google Nest thermostat. And then I mentioned routes to compliance. So we get the fabric compliant, we make sure we get a tick in our fees box. We then move through and specify a compliant low temperature heating system with smart control. Then to balance off to compliance, we finally apply an amount of solar PV generation to the design to ensure that primary energy rate and the dwelling emission rate are achieved. House types, Bellway house types with cylinders also benefit from a PV diverter device. What this does, it will manage the customer's PV generation more efficiently. So rather than exporting to the grid, when this device senses potential to export, it will trigger a immersion heater in the cylinder. Thus, rather than that heat energy disappearing off to the grid for little or no value, it's actually stored in the customer's hot water cylinder as free of charge hot water. We also incorporate wastewater heat recovery into a number of house type designs. Again, this is a device that's recovering the heat out of the wastewater from a shower into the incoming main, shower bar, and thus reduces the reliance on the customer's cylinder for showering. Just referring back to SAP process, Bellway do work with a limited number of SAP assessors to ensure the quality of the energy calculation. These partnerships also, we're compliant, or group specification is applied in all circumstances, but we achieve a consistent level of compliance. Reducing the number of SAP assessors, Bellway Homes, we have a science-based target. One of my other responsibilities is to look after our Scope 3 value chain. Actually, having a reduced number of energy consultants has made the collation of data for the Scope 3 value chain much easier. We receive regular, good quality data on dwelling emission rates and EPC rating of the ratings of the homes we build. And then finally, Part L came along with the requirement to collect and collate a set of photographic images to evidence that we fulfill our design intention in the homes we construct. I think, when the industry looks back at L1 2021, this is probably one of the largest impacts. So Bellway used the Field View platform to capture, store, collate, and produce a report containing images of key areas of specification at the end of the process. These are, as you can see, we've got some images here. These are geotagged and time and date stamped. So this is reasonably recent. I think it's 16th of November last year, or whether it was issued or whether the photo was taken then. So images are captured of a number of construction details to ensure continuity of insulation. Here you can see the perimeter edge insulation is in place for both the external wall junction and the door to threshold location. Images are also taken of items such as the Google Nest thermostat, DMEV fans, and PV panels. I think when you do go through the appendix in Part O, most of the items that have a significant impact on either dwelling emission rate, primary energy rate, or fabric energy efficiency are actually asked for. Our view is Braille images are a positive step to aid the developer in evidencing that specifications are followed on site, and no doubt this will help reduce the apparent performance gap. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That's really helpful. We are now going to go to Nick. So Jamie, you can stop sharing your screen, and hopefully Nick should be able to share his screen.
You'd kind of hope so.
Let's see. Let's see if it'll work.
Can you see that? Is that?
I can see your screen, but the slides aren't showing just yet.
Just let me.
There we go. That is perfect.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Wild. I'm from Constructive Thinking Architects in Liverpool, and following on from Jamie's presentation there, where our work is, we ostensibly work in the domestic market, housing, but we work on both new build housing and retrofit schemes. So I think that the retrofit schemes are very useful to follow on from what Jamie was saying, just about how Part L wasn't really a surprise for us, because the work we're doing at the moment basically covers a lot of the Part L changes that have come in. So basically, our work is largely domestic, and we consider the decarbonisation of whole neighbourhoods, and looking with anticipation for the future changes, in particular beyond Part L, as some projects take at least 5 years to complete. So, so some of the considerations that we're going to look at really are to do with the domestic changes and non-domestic changes of Part L, and the use of PAS 2035, which is the specification that we use for retrofitting properties, and how that is influencing and is basically influenced Part L as well. Future home standards, how we're using SAP 10 and beyond SAP, how we use our BIM templates, the effects of the Building Safety Act. So it's not just Part L as such in isolation with that. And, what we're going to do as we look, as we look forward to creating net carbon zero neighbourhoods. So, so just looking at these, looking at my slides now. So, all our projects, all our retrofit projects, as a practice, for as long as I've been here, the last 8 to 10 years, we do all our own kind of SAP work. So both domestic and non-domestic, which is obviously SBEM. And when we work in, we always look for, looking at the U values, we always look towards the, fabric first approach. We can obviously make a building, a property more energy efficient, the use of renewables and PV and the like. But does that really improve the living quality of the residents? So where we think the most simplest approach in the first instance is obviously the fabric of the building. And part of those, the work we do within the PAS 2035 is to do, the processes require that we photograph and report and document and all the evidence, all the installations. So again, that is something that's new within Part L, but that we're already doing within practice. So some of the other standards that have been kind of coming out of the new Part L is like future home standards, which I think is going to be introduced in 2025. again, this picks up on many of the things that we're doing already in practice, to do with recording information and really focusing on the fabric of the building. We're also looking at, as was pointed out by Ben, is although one of the problems that we have when we're looking through doing our SAP reporting and SAP design is the overheating of buildings. So that's now been separated out to part O in the Act. And so we're also looking at the Building Safety Act as well. So we have we're working on a couple of projects for towers in London and in Manchester at the moment. And we're finding that the opportunity is, the Building Safety Act is obviously looking to make these towers much, much safer. And I think the way we look at the materials we use in insulating buildings, it's a real opportunity to bring those two things together, the safety of the building and the improvement of its thermal fabric. And yes, so as you say, I think a real importance for us is the fabric of the building. So a major part of our kind of actual design process is using SAP as a design tool. So and also the cold bridging software that we use. So most of that, all our cold bridging software sits within our BIM software. So we basically, it's a key design component as we work through details and designs. So we don't design a building and then start testing it at the end. It's an intrinsic part of our process. So recommendations from what we're finding with reviewing Part L is, that you should familiarise yourself with the changes to SAP, and also the dissonance with RDSAP. We always find that RDSAP is very much a blunt tool. It gives you a reading of how the property is performing. But the more accurate, and specifically with the new SAP 10 coming into being now, is a much better tool to design with. So yeah, so taking a fabric first approach to design. The documentation of construction, again, record the past process of assessment, design, and coordination. That process is recorded from the start of the project all the way to the end until lodgement. Then we can look at how we consider this in relation to Future Homes and the Building Safety Act. And ultimately, the aim is for neighbourhood decarbonisation. So where we're doing retrofit schemes, we often find there's a lot of kind of surplus land around some of the estates or areas that we're working in. So if we can bring in new build along with refurbishing existing properties, we can start to really think about decarbonising whole areas. So don'ts, our don'ts that we would recommend is not to just consider Part L on its own. They are intrinsically connected to all the other parts of the regulations, to do with materials, to do with overheating and the such. We should only design to what the current standards are, and don't work in isolation of the wider team, the design team and contractors and housing associations. So So the intricacies of the latest Part L changes provide insights needed to effectively manage and deliver projects in this evolving landscape. So key highlights include a comprehensive overview of Part L and its updates. So a deep dive into the recent changes of the regulations, understanding the implications for building design, energy performance, and environmental sustainability. So this helps gain clarity on the specific requirements and how they contribute to the broader goals of reducing carbon emissions and enhancing energy efficiency. We should look for strategies for seamless integration as well. We should explore practical strategies for seamlessly integrating the latest Part L requirements into your projects, ensuring compliance without compromising design or functionality. We should learn from industry experts who have successfully navigated and implemented these changes in various projects as well. So we should always look for technological solutions for gaining this enhanced performance that we're striving to achieve. So, discovery of cutting-edge technologies and tools that can aid achieving and surpassing Part L compliance. Explore case studies showcasing the successful integration of innovative solutions and enhancing building performance while meeting regulatory standards. And then we should also look at project management and best practices of that. So uncover effective project management methodologies that could be tailored to meet challenges posed by the Part L regulations, and learn how to streamline processes collaboratively, efficiently, and deliver projects on time and within the new and energy efficient parameters. So, and finally, and in conclusion, really, future-proofing strategies. Anticipate future regulatory developments and understand how to implement strategies that will future-proof your projects against upcoming changes. And also, finally, explore opportunities for innovation and sustainable practices that align with long-term environmental goals. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nick. We're going to move now into the question and answer session. So I'm going to invite all of our speakers back. That's brilliant. Nick, if you can stop sharing your screen, and then we'll invite Jamie back as well. And I think you're still sharing your screen.
Yeah,
just trying to toggle across. That's fair enough. So while we're getting Nick back, I'm going to just run through some of the questions that have come through. So we had a question from Lucy saying, how does geolocation software work where there are issues with getting a signal or GPS? So she's saying, I use tracking software for sport, and also when using Google Maps to find somewhere in a city. So I'm aware of the limitations of GPS. So how can the software be relied on, particularly on an enclosed building? So that's a very sort of practical question. I don't know if anyone's got any personal experience of GPS and how it can work on a site.
So on the whole, what we're finding is that signals aren't good enough to get the chip within the tablet to work, and that's accurate to within a meter or so. In instances where that is not the case, and they obviously exist, there are, dare one say, various Trimble products that you can use to boost those signals. And of course, FieldView itself works offline, and if you as well, and then syncs back when it gets back into the office environment. And the other thing to say is that over and above all that, if you want to do this via QR code, you can QR code for each location and do it from that. and there are also obviously things like 360 views and products that work with that as well.
Thanks, Ben.
Jamie, do you want to add anything to that, since you're dealing with this all the time?
Sorry, Ben, Chloe. Technical and innovation is in my job title. I have, however, mastering IT is not. However, the images I put up, I haven't had any reports back from our business with any kind of struggles with the geo tag and time dating on the JPEGs that come through. Because Ben, am I right in saying that's the format of the image taken as much as the platform that we're loading it up onto anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And so it doesn't sound like it's been a huge problem for you, Jamie. Nick, I don't suppose, have you had any experience of the GPS letting you down?
No, not really. I would say that generally that kind of locating thing is more, from my experience, is like to do with the installation side, that to prove that they're at a certain property. So, and I'm not quite sure if it's just geolocated by the tag on the photograph or not. So I think from our side, from what we do, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have a question from Nicholas. With Bellway's field view record, is a copy of the records relating to the materiality and workmanship of external walls and fire stopping and cavity barriers associated with the compartmentation of demises for each apartment passed to the owner of these apartments? Sorry, that's not very well read, but I think,
so
do you understand what he means by that, Jamie?
No. So I understand entirely. So Brel images are Brel images. So the Brel the Part L appendix, I can't remember which appendix it is now with regard to photographic imagery, was quite specific about what images it wanted, and they are relating to Part L. So it's construction detail, continuity of insulation, it's type of boiler used, and confirmation you've done with controllers what you said. What I think Nick's referring to is the kind of work we're doing on fire safety. So we are the other types of photographical imagery that Bellway take are relating to health and safety and fire safety. So the Brel images aren't the only images uploaded onto the field view platform. I've spoke about Brel today because it's in relation to Part L. With regard to the position of fire socks, deep compartmentalation, if that's the right English, I don't think it quite is. They are captured and they are stored as evidence. And again, that is within the field view system. Unfortunately, I can't. I would have to speak to my colleague, the group construction director, to figure out whether they are made in the public domain or whether they're kept as part of the building record. But what I can say to Nicholas is, yes, those images are taken for Bellway to satisfy herself that we have all of that fire stopping in place. What I can't comment on this afternoon is whether that is made available to the customer.
But
Right.
under the Safety Act anyway, these will be being kept now for 30 years now that we all need to maintain these the golden thread.
Yeah, and that's to your point, Nick, isn't it? That you don't want to look at these regulations in isolation. So looking at building regulations in terms of building safety as well.
Yeah, I think obviously with regard to the Building Safety Act, it's very new and it's very complicated, and so we're in a kind of good position at the moment where we're acting as coordinator on one project. So, and that's for a very large practice in Manchester. And when I was saying before at the start, when I was talking about where Part L this new Part L wasn't such a surprise to us, because we were already doing these things, and we kind of take for granted for what we do, to do using SAP as a design tool, doing all our own code bridging calculations as well. So we kind of seen watching another large architect who's used to doing tall buildings really struggling with that because they've never done it before. So they kind of we're having regular meetings with them to help them do their detailing and doing all their thermal calculations as well. And it's a brave new world to them. So that came as a bit of a surprise, really. You know, obviously, when you're working in your own practice all the time, you don't get to know what other practices are doing.
Yeah, no, so quite an insight.
Yeah. So kind of using that experience for a project we're doing, another 2 towers down in Watford, where the measures are not as complicated, but it's the process of the BSA that is really complicating the project. You know, just kind of changing some windows and doing a little bit of insulation. It's not a full wrap of the building, but the process is still really, you know, we've still got to go for that process. And so, and what's kind of giving me comfort through that is that, you know, because, you know, again, as the architect, we have to basically do the building reg application. Now there's no building control anymore. There's just us saying, yeah, it complies. And so that's a concern when it comes to the construction, but there's comfort there that everything has to be recorded, you know, within the PAS process. So, you know, it's photographed at the beginning, it's photographed in the middle, and it's photographed at the end. So you, even though you're not on site 24 hours a day, you know everything's being recorded and you know exactly what's happening.
Yes, there is some comfort in those records. Okay, we've got more questions coming in. A question to Ben specifically, wanting to ask, what were the 3 tools to prevent heat loss and cold bridging? Sorry, I think this person was briefly disconnected and you mentioned 3 tools for that. Is that right?
I think I did. I mentioned the various softwares that the BRE have signed off on, which assist with SAP calculation, and then there are obviously, you know, Trimble have some of their own tools as well, which do this kind of things, as do you know, lots of the large software companies. So so I split it into 3 parts. So I said that there are simulation tools, i.e., that simulate things like cold bridging and heat loss and so on. And then there are, you know, and effectively that is data creation. And then there's on-site collection of data. And then there are your connected common data environments, which also then collect all of this information. What I think is worth saying is that, you know, with these, so I was actually at a thing at the Building Centre in Store Street today talking about the Safety Act. And what is, I think, significant is actually a lot of these processes in Part L and the building are very similar. They are asking for evidence on-site, geolocated and time-stamped to prove that you've either done the you know, fire stopping correctly, or to prove that your insulation details are as approved. So they're very similar, and the key in all cases really is to ensure that you have those tools in place to record and to give you that auditable trail of all of this information. So I don't know if it's a 360-degree view on a certain day, and you want to go back and see what happened on that day, you need to be able to go and do that, and for a long period of time. So that seems to me to be the key.
And Ben, I think this is another one for you. Someone asking, putting you on the spot here, but saying, does FieldView, does the software offer anything that others don't? Is there an aspect of what you do that they wouldn't find elsewhere?
Look, what do you expect me to say here? Is the easy answer. I think there is a reason that FieldView. Look, I'm going to put my little corporate hat on for a second and say I think there is a reason that FieldView is the leading product for the collection of data on site, and that most of the tier ones use it. You know, I would say that, wouldn't I? So obviously there are bunches of tools. So for the purposes of this particular, you know, I'm not going to go on some kind of sales rant now. If I could. You know, for the purpose of this, there are a whole bunch of tools out there which will collect site data. So the important thing from the point of view of Part L is that you are doing this and that you have that audit trail of having done it, that you can go back and do it, you know. I mean, perhaps Jamie would say, why you use Field View? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's best to put it to a user.
Yeah, well, you know, it was part of the bigger business decision, and it was, you know, there are other packages that would do Brel and Brel on its own, but having the flexibility to cover Brel, the fire safety photography, and the photography that we want to be doing for customer care, that broader package was what attracted our business to Trimble and Fieldview.
Okay. So we've got more questions. So this is about the QR code method. So is the QR code method recording on GPS on our high-rise scheme the same? I.e., how do the records? How do you record the difference between a GFGA when comparing a unit above?
So the QR code will give you a location for the particular form that you are that you're filling out on your tablet, and then that is located onto the plan as well. So you've got, you know, that that's related at this time. This photo is attached to this form at this time, and that it you know, relates to this particular space. And the QR code.
Yeah. So I think they're obviously thinking about a high-rise scheme, and if it's a geolocation.
But it's the same. It's exactly the same in a high-rise scheme. You know, it'll tell you what floor you're on, what room you're in, or whatever particular space it is that you want to record against. It might be a flat, it might be a room, or indeed a car.
Okay. So we've got another Ben with a question. I work in the non-domestic market, and the question relates to the CIBSE code M embedded into the relevant approved documents. Do the panel produce requirements in their specifications up to section 6.5 to allow construction to adopt and implement? Now that might be quite specific, so I don't know if people can answer that question or not.
Yeah, Chloe, I might need that one in an email for me to.
Yes, I might forward that one to you guys. Okay, but there's more flowing in. So this is from Sean. New properties designed under the newer legislation will not be such an issue with regard to the old housing stock. How will we get those upgraded by 2050? How can we make property owners upgrade their properties, especially with the cost of these upgrades? I mean, that's quite a huge topic, and I don't think anyone's quite got the answer to that. Probably because it relates a lot to government policy. But Nick, you're nodding. Is that just in
I'm nodding. Yeah. Obviously it is. But so currently, everything we're doing is in the social housing market, and not the private market. And we've obviously come across those problems where initially, where we were doing full estates, everybody's property was going to be done. The cost came in, the costs were too high, and all the property owners were dropped out the scheme. And then you end up with a scheme where it's pot marked by the properties that have not been done, and all the other ones are new and shiny. And we did try to get around that. You know, we produced packs for homeowners for them to do the works based on our original details. But obviously, social housing, how many people want to spend an additional £40,000-50,000 on their property? You know, some people may just want to change the roof, but so the solution to that, it's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, Yeah, it may be that as we, we kind of look at archetypes and look at system build housing as well. And so you can start to locate those and share, you can share your solutions now, across those property types and across those archetypes. Maybe that is the future. At the moment, if you're asking me as an architect, it's mine. But maybe in the future, as we move on to more, different areas of what we took, of decarbonisation, and we're leaving behind the simple solutions. Because all this information goes back to government anyway. So, and they'll make their decisions with that. Saying if it's if it's simple act of just doing cavity fill, insulating your loft, and putting some ventilation in, most people would, and that would take you to a C, or an EPC C quite quickly. Most homeowners would be able to do that. If you live in a little red brick 2 up, 2 down house from 1900s, and we're looking at solutions that are wrapping the whole building in insulation, maybe not so. So
yeah, I think that's the thing. Our current housing stock is so varied, and
that's
Well,
right.
trying to find
I
a
can't
collective,
resist.
holistic. Yes,
I can't resist being political for 1 second here. Of course, this is a political issue. If we're saying that on the whole, and again, I'll look to Nick and to Jamie to correct me if this is horribly wrong. If we're saying that on the whole, if we insulate our homes, that insulation will pay for itself within, say, 15 to 20 years. So if we're saying to the wealthier homeowner, that makes sense for you, doesn't it? It'll pay for itself. If as a country we are saying we need to get to net zero by 2050, then surely exactly the same thing works for public expenditure. So why on earth don't we have a national insulation program for our existing housing stock, which is the vast bulk, which would take a vast number of people out of fuel poverty?
yeah,
and will pay for itself in that 20 years. Now, of course, no government wants to do that and borrow the money to do that. So we're told that, they don't want to borrow money for anything at the moment, but, no government wants to do that because we elect another government in 5 years. So you'll get we need a bit of long-term thinking and a bit of, sorry, this is my political rant, as I said it would be, a bit of long-term thinking and a bit of honesty from our politicians to us about how this all works. And it's nothing to do with the building industry. This is, this is politics.
And I think, decarbonisation of heat is going to be a big part there. Okay, and you've got to have in the retrofit market, you've got to have the type of fabric that will support the efficient running of an air source heat pump. Now, Bellway Homes, we know where Future Home Standard is, but we're also driven to decarbonise, move to electrical heating for our own science-based target. And then we've got that incentive because we've made that commitment. We know where regulations are going, but I think to get the domestic marketplace to move away from gas boilers to air source heat pumps, there has either got to be that kind of carrot to encourage or the stick to encourage. And I think unless there is in 15 years time, does a new build property with an air source heat pump look really attractive? Because do you know what? I've got to retrofit my house in the next 5 years, and it's going to cost an awful lot more difference than the difference in moving to new build. I think the big chunk of carbon is going to be coming from the move away from gas boilers. So it's how do you encourage that?
Well, look, the discussion has gone in a slightly different direction than I was expecting, but it's all very interesting, and it actually aligns very much with Building's own election coverage and a report that we put out into, in fact, looking at long-term solutions for construction. So absolutely, Ben, all of that rant aligns very nicely with what Building is campaigning for on behalf of the industry. So thanks very much. Unfortunately, though, that is all we've got time for. I know we had so many questions, so anything that we didn't get to, I will forward on to our panel, and if they can respond, I'm sure they will. But I just want to say a huge thank you to Ben, Jamie and Nick, and to our sponsor Trimble for today's session. A reminder that it's available on demand on our website very shortly. And also this was all part of Risk and Regulations Live, which happened today and yesterday. So again, you can access all of those webinars as well. We also will have a little pop-up of a feedback survey. It literally just takes a couple of moments, and it really helps us improve our webinar offer to you in the future. So if you do have any feedback, positive or negative, we really want to hear it. So just please take a couple of moments to fill that in. And next week, we've got Housing Today Live, I believe. So there are more webinars coming up if that is relevant to you. But for now, we are bang on the dot of past. So brilliantly timed, everyone. Well done. So I'm going to say goodbye and hope you can all join us for future webinars. Thank you.